Welcome. We are the AP Idiots, and episode 1. A priest, a rabbi, and a monk walk into a bar. So basically where all jokes started was occasional bar jokes when a bunch of people would walk up to a bar, drink a lot of whiskey, and forget what they were saying, which is where the priceless piece of a joke at the bar table would work enticingly. So what are your views on this?
I say that these offensive jokes are really just that. They're a joke. There's nothing to it. It's just trying to make light of a darker situation.
We look at how we are in the entertainment industry. We have people such as Kathy Griffin or Kevin Hart who rely on offensive jokes and stuff like that. It's how their career got started. But you also look at the fact that two people can make the same joke, but it's okay for one person to make it because of ethnicity, but not okay for the other. Like, a Mexican can make Mexican jokes, but a black man or a white person couldn't make those jokes. But back then they could.
And what do you mean by they can't? Who's to stop them?
No one's to stop them. They just get criticized and hate for it, which then revolves around going back to social media, then hateful comments. How dare you say this? How dare you do this? When really it's all just jokes. Look as recent as Will Smith slapping Kevin Hart on stage.
Over an offensive joke.
Over an offensive joke. But it wasn't necessarily an offensive joke. It was just saying that she looks like someone in a movie
who's bald.
It's not necessarily offensive. He wasn't saying on stage about hi, you're bald, this, that, or whatever. It was more of a comparison about a movie. It was an offensive joke, yes, but it was very funny. And he was even laughing at it until she said something.
And I think at that point, when you go to near violence or just hate for the comedian, it's more detrimental. If that's their job, if that's their life, you're taking it away from them. Cancel culture just ends careers for little to no reason.
Like before, we used to be able to tell any joke we wanted, and my stepdad always told me about all the offensive jokes he could make. He was the king of them. But now in today's life, we always had to be conscious of what we were going to say. Back then I could say, how many cops does it take to change a light bulb? None. They just beat the room for being black. Back then, that would have been hysterical. Right now, we got people criticizing it just because of a racial profiling in the words of the joke.
And it's not all that. There's even some African Americans that make their own kind of jokes that find it hysterical, and then they're ripping on themselves. But then if one of us says it, a Mexican or a white person or an Asian, if they say those jokes, then it's offensive. How is that possible? That doesn't make sense to me. I get there's certain jokes that okay, maybe you saying it's a different perspective on it, but if it's the same joke, what's the difference other than the person that's delivering it?
There is no difference. It's just the way we've been raised. We see people tell these kind of jokes and we associate that the other kind of person can't for no reason.
And it's odd too because when we were younger and our parents were younger, we grew up watching South Park and Family Guy. Seth MacFarlane makes his character say the craziest things and offensive things.
Yeah, more so than most comedians.
In South Park,
They literally had a black kid named Token to symbolize the token black kid.
Literally, South Park takes place in an elementary school. And they talk about sex, abortion, drugs, this, that, whatever.
Shootings,
it's the craziest and funniest thing ever, and they say the most offensive things that it's incredibly funny.
But they get away with it because they pass it off as just a joke. If it's a show, it's fine. When you attach the joke to a person, then maybe people start taking offense.
I honestly don't understand how we're so sensitive if we grew up on stuff like that and having those comedians. A bunch of them have apologized for jokes that they made before. They would never say that now. Never.
Yeah.
But that's what they did to get to where they are.
Mm-hmm. What's your best example of an offensive joke? I know I gave the one about the police officers, but I could think of a few better ones.
I don't really make necessarily offensive jokes. I'm more of a dark humor kind of person. I enjoy all the...
In general. When we make offensive jokes, it's not really towards any person. It's just on an aspect.
Everyone always gives the example of it's because it's not you find it funny. That when people tell jokes to you, then you find it offensive. There is obviously a line to draw. You wouldn't tell an abortion joke to someone who just lost their kid. Or you wouldn't go up to a Holocaust survivor and make a joke about that. But if we're talking in a broad term in a public spectrum, that's obviously different.
There's bullying, and then there's telling comedy.
And then there's obviously the limits about bullying. If you're bullying someone because they have cancer by making those offensive jokes, that's obviously, you don't do that.
And there goes my cancer joke. Okay.
We don't know anyone with cancer. Go ahead and tell them.
What's pink, black, and has 17 nipples? The trash can behind the cancer ward. So at this time and now, we have two people just face palming because of the offensive jokes I can tell. But I consider this funny, but some people would probably find it rather childish or offensive. And honestly, I could not give a because guess what? It's a joke. People get ticked off about the slightest thing in jokes. You have to be careful of every single thing you say, or some white Karen's going to smack you upside the head and say, hey!
Why should we, right? Why should we care for the feelings of strangers?
I don't care for the feelings of strangers.
Yeah,
I tell jokes because I think it's funny. Literally, I went on a field trip with my science teacher at this aquatic place for the scrubs and all that. And one of the ladies was like, does anyone know the difference between a normal alligator and a Chinese alligator? And I said out loud, oh, one has squinted eyes. Sure, everyone was like, whoa. But at the end of the day, people thought it was funny, even the teacher. So I was still satisfied with my joke. Sure, you could say it's bad timing, but I don't care.
It goes on a broad term, too, that it's not just offensive jokes. It's things that can be considered offensive in general. Like, when we learn about historical events like the Civil War and the Holocaust, there's obviously going to be jokes about that.
Oh, definitely. I already have one right now. It's like the whole Holocaust could have been prevented if they didn't mistranslate what Hitler said. He didn't say gas the Jews. He said he wanted a glass of juice.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, see? I'm clever.
But it's also just like people's perspective on things. Everyone was raised differently. If we were all raised the same and we all had the same views, the world would be boring. There wouldn't be any creativity. It would basically be in a world where everything's brown.
About like being raised near like offensive jokes. Maybe some people were born in like a boring house like that.
Some people use offensive jokes and dark humor as a way to cope with trauma.
Like soldiers, right? You know, amputees. I guarantee you, every time you see an amputee, they will make a joke themselves.
How do you get a one-armed man out of a tree?
There's this girl.
Wave.
There's this girl online. Her name is Molly. I forgot her last name. She's the sweetest girl ever, but she's blind. She has regmos pigmentosa. I believe that's how you pronounce her type of blindness. She literally says that she'll make blind jokes, like make them, please. I want you to make them. If you can't make a blind joke in front of me, then that means you're uncomfortable with the fact that I'm blind. If you can, then I know you're comfortable and we're just back and forth having fun. I like her perspective on that. It's actually something really to admire. She doesn't take offense to it. She goes into it herself.
Yeah, at that point, it's a part of their personality, you know. They gotta
the way to deal with it. Because she's been blind since I believe it was 13, she said in her interview. And she has had to relearn everything. And she's thought about very bad things. She opened up about that in an interview she did. And I felt so bad for her. But at the same time, that's another way she copes. She makes jokes. She tries to live out inglorious things to, like, make up for that fact and, like, deal with it. That's her coping. Yeah. You can't hate someone for that. Little People, Big World's a good example of that. Yeah. With people that are going through that, they make jokes about themselves.
Literally heard about a comedian talking about how this midget was mad that he called him a midget. Say, hey, that's offensive as the N-word. And I'm like, you know what's more funny? The fact that you would still say the word midget and not even say the other word. Like, don't even say the N-word, so you can't even say it's bad because you won't even say it. Yeah, I've always seen those videos of where it's like a midget on TikTok saying like, what would you do if I broke into your house? And the guy just kicks an action figure out the door.
Or they put up a gate.
Little dog gate.
Little dog gate, yeah.
Jail cell out of popsicle sticks.
Did you say a jail cell out of popsicle sticks?
Yep. Or no, I should have said toothpicks. What else can I think about? No, midgets aren't something I normally pick on. Well, it's not that I don't. Yeah, I don't care about anything.
You don't see them enough to pick on them.
Yeah, it's not that. It's just that I'm not creating enough like a midget jokes because there's already a lot of short jokes.
People saying that they could throw them as far as a football field.
Throw them as far as a football field. They have to zip line on a freaking clothing line. Yeah, the most I don't really like make fat jokes, but the best one I've ever done, it wasn't a fat joke. It was an act. I borrowed my friend's tuba and I followed a fat man around going like wah 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 wah. It was honestly the best thing I could have done. The best part is he wasn't even offended.
And what part about that I like is how it like teaches people how something's not so like black and white. You think it's one thing, because like offensive joke that they can like reveal the truth or like they can change your mind about something. Like things about war, right?
You know the Korean Wars went like downward spiral when you have a general named Sumting Wong.
What's the most like offensive thing? Not even necessarily a joke, but an offensive thing that you've said or been called out for.
What do you mean?
Like, if you've said, like, an offensive joke or something that can be construed as offensive, but really you were just trying to be broader about something.
What's the worst misconception someone said?
What's the worst misconception you've ever gotten?
Like, someone said about me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing. No one's ever...
You've never had an instance about this?
Like, are you saying,
no, like xenophobia? No, like...
So while you're saying, like, have I ever gone into...
Have you ever gotten, like,
hating.
called out for it? Like, saying, whoa, guy, that's too...
Like, you're wrong.
Far. It doesn't have to be a joke. It could be anything that could be considered controversial.
Honestly, no, because whenever someone tries to make a joke about me, regardless of race or age or sex or body weight, they look at me, what the hell are you? Because you don't know what I am. They can't make a joke about a person that looks white but really is Hispanic. I literally have a freaking tattoo about 2 Hispanic flags because that's what I am. But they don't know that I have that tattoo. They don't know what I am, so they can't really make a joke about me. Sure, they can make a fat joke. I'm like, wow.
So original.
So original, making a fat joke.
There's
really.
Like people making short jokes about me. I've heard every single short joke in the book. Like, I have never heard anything new or different. And I'm like, you got to say anything.
You know, the 50th time, how's the weather down there? Doesn't get any funnier.
The hilarious.
Your mama's so short that she can't get high on weed.
What about you? What's your case? Do you have a case?
No. I don't think I've talked to enough people to get like that. But some people have been called out. Like, you said you were called, not a dictator, but racist.
I've been called a white supremacist before.
Supremacist.
Yes. So I had an instance back at my old school where I was basically shunned for having the 3rd national flag in my dad's office. He grew up in New York, but came down here. He was one of those people back then, because this is back when things were okay, he would have a Confederate flag on his shirt, and he had a big belt buckle, and he would go into, he lived in those bad neighborhoods, and something could have, luckily it didn't, but we have the 3rd national one, which has nothing to do with that in its sense. It's not the battle flag. And I was in my dad's office when I was recording a video for school. They never even looked at it, and they just hear the word Confederate flag, background of a video, cut it out. They didn't look at anything else in its aspects, so I made a video talking about the history of it. It wasn't necessary. I had people call me biased, saying, like, oh, you're only looking at this side of it. I'm like, because this is the side that gets ignored. You have to include this if you're going to do an argument in a debate fashion. People were in my comments were not only just calling me a white supremacist and things like that, they were also then attacking me directly, like saying bad stuff about me. I'm like, okay, so the point that I made earlier has just gone over your head because you're now attacking me as a person and my character, and then bringing up old stuff and lying about me. I never address any of this publicly, of the stuff that they would say. Like, I remember I was accused of being homophobic, like that had something to do with it. I got brought up in my past things. People were like, oh, you always say stuff when people slightly inconvenience you. I'm like, nice to know that, I don't know, me living's a slight inconvenience. Someone ruining my life and trying to get me fired from my job's a slight inconvenience. But by all means, go ahead and say that. I just never said anything publicly because I didn't want to feed into it. I didn't want to make it worse. But then I got accused of like having underage sex with somebody, that an 18-year-old had sex with me, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, I have to say something. But I still didn't. And part of that is my fault, but also if they weren't going to listen in the video, what would make them listen now? You know what I mean? It was a giant headache not saying anything, but I didn't want to make it worse. And it sucks because I had to go through all of it, and by not saying anything, it made it seem believable. So recently I have been saying stuff, but I never made a public video or response to it, because the next thing I know, all of it's going to be about like, oh, she's only saying this now, or you're still a bad person, when literally I don't give a crap. I literally don't. I still have the people in my life that choose to respect me. If you don't, great, good for you. I don't care. You guys are fake. I had people turn on me and like say all this crap about me, that, and like blatantly lie to me about other things, and I was like, are you serious? Like, we're gonna act like none of that happened? And that's what bothered me the most, was that people were like saying that I have always been a bad friend,
that I never cared about them and stuff. That was them actually attacking my character, and that hurt the most because I put my life on the line for my friends. I help them, I'm there for them, even when things are difficult for me. So getting accused of that during all this just sucked. But I still never said anything until now, because this is what we're talking about, right?
People were saying that, like, I've always been racist, that I don't have any African-American friends. Literally, my 2 best friends at work are African-American, and when they found out about this, they're like, are they crazy? I'm like, that's because they don't listen. I'm not racist. I even said in that video that I was just making a broad statement about this matter because it is something that isn't taken seriously. They were trying to justify a girl in a low-cut tank top bouncing on a bed on a school news video.
Which, by the way, I'll tack on real quick, that nothing to her happened. That video is still up. You can look at it. And her little posse of people continue to bully me. One of those girls that is friends with her outed me that I moved schools, so that way they could continue to bully me here. Someone cut up my jacket here, and, like, I got yelled at, and I already had to go to the office, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And they still get rewarded. If it was a system that it's supposed to be justice and things like that, why are they getting rewarded for essentially the same thing, if not them being worse? Because the principal and my teacher even said that what she did was inappropriate and wrong and not right for the school. She tried to justify it, saying better than the same boring old news, but it's the school news. I hope the administration is happy with having that tacked on to their image, that whenever anyone looks it up, that video can still be found by them. So that's going to be great for them. And they made their own club too. And the other girl that really bullied me along with her was president before she graduated. That just shows that they really don't give a damn about what they do at all.
I'm not saying necessarily what I did was better, but it wasn't as bad as compared to that, considering it's not the actual battle flag and the reasons behind it. And also, what people don't realize is that they turn it into bad things. The flag itself was not made to be racist.
Like, with offensive jokes, you have the snowflakes, but the other end of, like, people
the snowflakes.
That's a term to say people are snowflakes. They're so sensitive and fragile.
Aside from you can take offense, and be offended, and we don't care. But then there's the fake heroism, where they try to stand up for people who don't need to be stood up for, right? They think you're wrong, and so they go out of their way to make you wrong.
Exactly. Like, it then went from being a discussion about how this is okay and this is not, or just brought in a term for it, because we don't learn about that in school. Because I remember I compared the Civil War to the American Revolution. The South was, like, in the Civil War, the South was seceding from the Union because of their rights. It wasn't just about slavery. There was way more to it. And if we actually look in our textbooks, we may not be taught it, but it's in our textbooks about that. And then American Revolution, we seceded from Britain. We came away because we wanted our own rights. The South wanted it too. But then if you also look more into history, one of the northern states, I forgot which one I said it was seceding because of their own stuff. That's the North. Slaves were free up there. Why would they secede if it was about that initially? That makes no sense to me.
Like, a lot of misconception. That's the thing about people, is that, like,
it then becomes a witch hunt, essentially.
Yeah, most people think they're right, even when they're not. So, it's just the...
I wasn't hating on anything that was going on. I'm not denying that there is that aspect of the flag, but you gotta remember, people make it things. Just like words like the R word. Back then, it was a different kind of term. Now it's offensive. So the whole meaning behind it and what it stood for is now gone.
Yeah.
And that's like... Look at Germany with, we know that swastikas represent the Nazi party, but then what about with the KKK with crosses?
Did you actually know that the swastika was actually embedded into Coca-Cola products?
No.
They actually had swastika bottle openers. They had it on the bottles.
Really?
Because they saw it as a symbol of purification. Because that's technically what it stood for.
Like in India, I believe they still have. They still use the swastika. They don't you view it as a bad light. Just because someone turned it into that doesn't mean anything.
They made it
the
first.
KKK burned crosses. Does that mean all Christians are bad? Are Christians racist? That makes no sense to me of why certain things are okay to divert from, but other things aren't. You either condemn it all or you condemn none of it. Yeah. You can have your opinions about it. I'm not dogging anyone's opinions, but then you can't hate on somebody just because they have a different perspective of it because they're viewing it in a different way than you.
What? I'm sorry, I got a text from my grief counselor. He died. Sorry, he was so good, I don't even care.
So all in all, like, there's nothing like innately wrong with offensive jokes. The only thing wrong with it is the people who tell them. If you tell it wrong, or if you like say something,
or if you have intensive bad purposes. I think
some people are like bad. Some people do tell racist, xenophobic things, and they mark it off as like dark, offensive humor when they can't be doing that. We have to know the difference as people when something can and can't be said. That's a line that's easy for us who tell people offensive jokes, but I guess to others they just don't get it.
Just because someone has intended things with bad jokes doesn't mean that everyone's like that. Dark humor and offensive jokes aren't wrong. It's the people that tell them and their intent.
Yeah. And in any sense, like any joke can be offensive. It doesn't have to be a person, but like any
everyone
joke,
has
something has to be the butt of every joke.
Everyone has their own opinions and views, and we're not docking anyone for that. But just because someone has different ones, like the way I was raised to view the flag was about Southern heritage, which is what it was originally for, back when they had the national flags and things like that. It doesn't mean racism. It is what it got turned into. If people stopped viewing things, it's not just the flag, it's other things, like with Mexican jokes, and then people from Asia, when they say like, oh, like the dog, like you eat dog and stuff like that. It's not just that. It depends on how you view it in your perspective. If you got rid of that, like if everyone's like, if African Americans stopped being offended by the flag, it would go away. Like with Jews and and people saying, oh, you're cheap because you're Jewish. If they stopped getting offended by that, that stereotype would go away.
Yeah.
But it's because everyone's so obsessed about being right. It's the reaction, and everyone wants to be right. That's their problem with that. Mm-hmm. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions and how they want to raise their children and their own personal beliefs, but you can't change everyone. That's not possible.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you have a right to be offended. You have a right to say you don't like something. Don't listen to it. You don't have a right
if you don't
attack
like
somebody.
To unjust action, yeah.
Just because, like, when my entire comment section blew up with stuff just about me, not even about the topic, but about directly me, that's when things went too far.
And sometimes it doesn't even stop at you. Maybe they go out for your family, Maybe
I had a scare. When I was at work, shortly after this happened, someone said they have my address and they're going to come and kill me. My mom said, okay, don't freak out, but there's a car outside and it's been sitting out here. No one's gotten out of it, but I'm going to shelter you when you come in from work. So she had to drive up to the door to bring me inside because of all this. Yeah. That's when you know you've gone too far. Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Who has to worry about that just because of their
It doesn't
beliefs?
Tip the scales. You're more on the wrong if you try and do something you shouldn't. Misconceptions are like communication gone wrong. That's where a lot of it starts. Like, Mr. Bellal, he is the English teacher in the hall. He identifies as an African American. He is white as snow, but he is African American. Like, he's from Africa, like, most of his life. But, like, if you say that, you're looking for your teacher, like, hey, have you seen an African American guy? They wouldn't think of him. And if you brought it up and you said, hey, he is what he is, they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Some people get offended.
Yeah. They're tone deaf. They won't let confirmation bias, and they won't listen to you. Right?
Some of them get offended if you don't call them black. They say black's not a bad word.
You know what I don't get? You can't call a black person a black. You have to specify as an African American, or else they will be offended.
And it's like
it's the other word. But then if we say black, then you say, "Excuse me, I'm African American." Yeah. You can't have it both ways.
Like, we've talked about African Americans, we talked about Mexicans. Like, I'm gonna rip on the British real quick. Yeah. Why do British people say bottle of water? Like, just think about it. When they watch Spider-Man, Pizza Parker. I ain't freaking stupid. Hey, mate, kind of rude of you to put a knife in your chest.
Australians, good eye, mate.
Good eye, mate. That's a wild bugger right there. Crikey, Shayla, get off the fire hydrant.
They make jokes about themselves. We pick on my mom because she's Irish. She drinks a lot. No, she doesn't. She doesn't drink.
Just
She doesn't,
because she's Irish.
just because she's Irish. Because that's the stereotype, is that they love the pot of gold and they drink.
I was just about to say the pot of gold.
And they drink till their heart's content.
Hey, I'm Irish. There's always a slight trace of alcohol in my blood system.
Italians, I have Sicilian in me, so people say when I make jokes like that, then that's racist of me. I'm like, I'm Sicilian.
I just like to say words in like an Italian kind of voice that sounds like fettuccine, Lamborghini.
I find that stuff funny.
Alfredo.
I'm purely Italian, and I find that stuff
Italian.
funny.
Despite being a Hispanic, I don't even know if I'm Italian, but I've eaten literally every single pasta in the world.
Over the wall.
Oh, what do you mean over the wall?
You said Mexican, so I was being funny.
Oh,
My dad,
right.
you're Italian, right? Like,
I am Italian.
Knows for my dad. Knows for Miles. He makes jokes on himself for his Italian. You know, it doesn't just have to be like ability or like how you look. It's like it could be your culture.
Good Italian jokes.
He does.
I've never been told a really good Italian joke.
He's got this one act where it's like a slot machine. He puts quarters up his nose and he like does that.
Where is this guy from? Vegas?
No, he gambles a lot. Yeah.
He gambles a lot.
Why do we call Asian people?
Why?
That's not a joke. I'm actually asking a question. Why do you call
I don't know.
offensive word for a black man is the N word? Hell, I can even say it. I'm half black, but I don't because the way I was raised, I don't feel comfortable saying it. But my mom even taught me that there's a difference. If you say the N word but have the ER, that's the offensive term. But if you say it with the A, it's not an offensive term.
But they also tell you
use it
that, but they can say it, but we can't.
Like
but then they have the nerve to call us crackers.
I like to think of myself as an Oreo, actually, the vanilla kind.
Vanilla kind.
Oh yeah, definitely. I identify as a vanilla Oreo.
A vanilla Oreo. So we gotta add that to like the identification list. You're either female, male, non-binary.
I hate that so many. I hate that so much. I'm not
There's
ripping
22.
on. I'm not ripping on people that
Not
say
22. 72.
like. I don't mean to disrespect any people that do like the multiple gender thing.
But
There's two genders. I do not agree with like 70, 22. You can keep going until the sky is the limit.
There's technically 72.
Okay.
Oh yeah, sure. Is a TAC helicopter one of them too? Is a Ford F-150 and
I don't even know all of them. I just know the three.
Even if
I just
I
know the
wanted
three
to,
basic ones:
it's like-
female, male, and non-binary. Those are the only ones I know.
What the heck is non-binary?
They don't identify as a male or a female. They're a they, them.
What's
You're
your
gonna tell me,
genitalia?
and I'm gonna forget. It's like,
What is there? What? So I only see two genders. Sure, you can say
Or
transgender,
they
but that's
say-
not a gender. I don't consider transgender a gender.
we have a word for it. It's called they.
Yeah,
Right?
they, them. Yep.
Yeah.
Or some people use she, they. That they feel female some days, but they feel like non-existent other days. A person.
Yeah, I feel female when I want to use the bathroom at school, so it's not as dirty as the boys' bathroom. But I feel like a boy. when I want to
Don't
play
give our
basketball.
bathrooms that much credit. People say that women's bathrooms smell like roses, and they have.
We don't say
couches.
that. We just say it's cleaner.
No, but they say it's cleaner, and then other people say it smells like roses. You see in movies all the time they depict that we have a couch or candles in ours. No, our bathrooms smell just as bad.
This is a high school. Where the heck are you going to?
I'm saying in movie depictions.
Yep, no urinals. Must have guessed wrong. Wow, look at this place. There's candles, hand lotion. Whoa.
Movie depiction. The only depiction I'm thinking of is that one Family Guy episode where he went into the women's bathroom at an Asian restaurant by accident because he couldn't tell the freaking difference of a sign. And it didn't even help when the Asian people looked the exact same when they exited the bathroom. Sure, say there's another Asian joke that could be
Because
offensive. With
they
them
all
being
are the same. Asian people get ripped on because they all have the same height.
It's like, oh yeah, that dude's pretty cool. It's like that's a
But
girl.
there's
That's pretty cute.
there's no taller short difference to know because like men
sometimes
are
but I think-
gigantically bigger than females.
You can say that about any race that's not yours because of face blindness. Like, it's a real thing. If you're in white suburbia all your life, you've been prone to see, like, white that you can distinct them. But, like, when it comes to other races, it's just a little bit harder. So, it's technically... it's not exactly racist to say it, but if you say it with ill intent, that all black people, all Asian people, all, like, Mexican people look the same, and
So
then
you
you,
said you
are
use
in
the
the
bleep.
wrong, but yeah.
People rip on like refugees like from like Vietnam and things like that, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Why do Italians always like emphasize everything they say? Like, hey, get over here, hey, Copernicus, go to the back of the line.
Go to the Bronx and you'll see
Why
all
do-
that.
Why is it?
I don't know, but
I don't know why we do
my whole
that.
thing is, why do they always have to say, like, whenever they, hey, I'm gonna go to this place, you want to? It's like, what is it? It's like, you've never been to Freddy's? He's like, I'm about to go get a bread sandwich. Like, what's a bread sandwich? You've never had a bread sandwich? It's 2 loaves of bread with 1 bread in the middle.
I don't know, maybe it's
like,
because I've never grown up in like in the Bronx in New York. My dad was there for a short time before he moved down here with his family. But I do find it funny when like they say like, oh, we go like this all the time with our hands, and then we say like, oh, patati, like spaghetti, okay, like we hear that all the time, and I get people saying some jokes like that to me.
Saying
like,
that, oh, this means white power. It's like people look too deep into it.
They also say that it's the devil 666, and I don't understand. It just means okay.
Yeah, for y'all that don't know what's going on, we are making the okay symbol, which upside down means got him. I never liked that kind of fan signal because it slapped the person that got me. I feel like it'd be offensive to call every Italian guy Mario, because when you think of Italian, for some reason Mario just pops up. Not even Luigi.
Well, I think spaghetti first, but
obviously spaghetti. Yeah, sure. I'm gonna call the guy fettuccine. I'm gonna call you manicotti. I'm gonna call you pasta. Okay. I gotta ask because I always see you wearing black, and then you've got the.
It's just her clothing style.
I know it's her clothing
style.
Have
to identify as either.
I know she doesn't have to, but when you see a lot of
I consider myself more of like a goth, yeah.
Like, what's even the difference? I think one's more sad, the other one's just like
emo is that like when you like go and like you see like the black light in their room and you.
Well, I have a black light.
You see the vampire posters everywhere.
Get out of my room, Mom! I'm playing the guitar. You don't understand my feelings. Just carries a pocket knife to like switch or a switchblade stuff. I consider that more of like the emo stereotype. If you want to go with that goth, I feel like you just like the dark style, which is what I grew up with. I listened to Marilyn Manson's music, and he's the most offensive. How have you never heard of him? He's the most offensive person ever.
He is, but now he's actually offensive.
He burned a Bible on the stage.
Now that's fun. See, I don't.
Ozzy Osbourne
bit off a bat's head on stage and spit it out.
How is that offensive? It's a bat. The most he probably got out of it was disease. Did he do it on stage?
He did it on stage at one of his concerts.
Yeah, so there's got to be millions of people with also millions of phones.
Marilyn Manson.
Millions of people who didn't think that thought. But anyway.
Marilyn Manson put out his thoughts and his stuff into his music and his performances on stage.
Yes, and it works.
Everyone knows all
Sometimes you can get popular by breaking the rules.
Definitely.
Most of the time, it was back then. Why is that? Why is it that we say back then? We were so much more like
back then means about like 20 years ago. In the that's nothing. 100 years, that's nothing.
Why did we get soft?
How did we get soft? I really don't understand.
Because we want to help, maybe. Because
we want to help. I just want to tell an offensive joke and not get burned. When
I got criticized for the flag scenario, and I called everyone snowflakes and called out the school for being a bad administration. And being a bad administration for not handling this in the manner that they should have. Because I got bullied for so many years, got death threats, things like that. They didn't handle it the way they should have. So when I called them out, I called them snowflakes. Then people were saying stuff about me.
Yeah.
Snowflakes isn't even a racial term. It's to just say weak person.
No, it's to be racial, but
it's just like calling them out for something, but then they get offended by it, and then you just proved my point. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy world we live in, and the fact that it's only a 20-year difference is extremely crazy to me, that now there's trigger warnings for everything. Like, have you ever heard of the singer?
Screw those millennials.
Have you ever heard of the singer Tom McDonald?
No.
Like PTSD.
I hear McDonald's, I think of the fast food restaurant, okay?
Tom McDonald's a rapper who's been on YouTube. Well, he makes controversial songs calling out things, and what's sad is that it's true. People are offended by the stuff that he says and things like that, and say that he's a racist and he's a terrible person and this and that. When a lot of people say that a lot of he's saying is true. Yeah. It's true. The stuff that he...
Or like Little Dicky with his song about like saving money because he's Jewish.
I haven't heard that song.
Oh, he made you know how like all these videos like shows their Lamborghinis and their mansions?
I like
he made an entire music video with $0, like borrowing Lamborghinis and stuff.
So
Tom McDonald's picked on stuff like his song like Clown World says that we're all basically clowns. We're playing ourselves fake woke about our society. People are so stupid. Canceled thing. All his songs like that is all in the same area of controversial music, but at the same time it's also putting out this message of saying, hey, why are we against this? I don't understand that.
So for the most part, these aren't going to make your life miserable. You forget about it, like maybe an hour or maybe a day, but still, it doesn't affect you. These aren't death threats. They aren't.
It's not like someone's mocking
your
like,
mental health.
It's not like someone's mocking depression.
It should not be going down unless you already have problems with mental health. It should really relatively.
And if it's a stranger that's making these jokes,
yeah,
how are they supposed to know that you have that? Do we all have bubbles above our head like in video games where it says this person has depression, anxiety, eating disorder? So how are you supposed to know?
I'd be in super big trouble if that pops up above my head.
We have the ability to not care about others' feelings, so they have the same ability to not care about what we say.
I don't care about anyone.
Yeah, you choose to care.
If your friend has an eating disorder, you know, unless they have made jokes themselves,
hello?
to not make
You are talking to a fat Mexican right now.
Okay, eating disorder goes both ways,
but so you, if you have a friend and you want to say an offensive joke about their weight, about having an eating disorder, or if
I can't really make a joke about it. It's more of an act.
Or someone being depressed, you know them, you're friends with them. You have the opportunity to say, "Hey, is this okay?"
And you know how to approach it.
And you know how to approach it. Yes, but if it's a stranger, how am I supposed to know what your problem is? Then you could say, "Oh, I'm a stranger. I'm gonna walk away now." Boom, it's done. Yeah. Offensive jokes are the best kind of jokes. I love my dark humor, and it's never gonna change. It just depends on your personality. We are the AP idiots, and we thank you for tuning to our podcast.
Not really. Chose to do this at will. I'm glad that you had to suffer through our random rambling about flags, Jews,
we're not
and all
affiliated
the other
with him.
We're not affiliated.
Oh yeah, sure, not affiliated with me. You want to keep saying that?
No wonder you're an AP idiot.
I'm not an AP idiot. I'm an AP expertise when it comes to being a moron. Because I say what's on my mind, and honestly, I could not give a crap. All right, that Mexican, bugging out.